How we doing, guys? Myself, Chris Freddy, OBE, hitting you with a quick one. Real talk, true season. Stand to attention, guys. I need everyone's attention right now because this guy is basically just breaking down the whole thing that we've all been saying. And like, once again, everyone's going to be sitting there talking about, my whole thing is, where's the transparency? Don't worry, I'll wait. I'm waiting for the government to show us some transparency. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Because 9 times out of 10, when we're looking at this whole scenario, this whole vaccine, yeah, I said it. I've been off it for a little while. You know what's there? They've been shouting about it on my page. I'm not allowed to talk about this. We're gonna shut this down, but I've had enough now. Yeah? When we first started, it was save the NHS. You're meant to be saving us. Then it was, oh, okay, we need to get the vaccine out and everything for the elderly. Do you know one's there protect the elderly? Okay. Then after that, it was like, no, the 40s need to get it as well because, you know, we just want to get the curve, you know, what's it, bend the curve and all this kind of stupidness that they started talking about. Then afterwards, there was like, you know what? Yeah, we're going to actually start vaccinating the youth still. Then we're going to say, well, we're making it mandatory for certain people that's at work that has to take it. Then they're forcing companies and organizations. Then they're going back and saying, nah, we can't really do the passport thing on you guys. You know, one's there like, you don't have to take the vaccine, guys. It's your choice. You have a choice. We're not making no one do nothing. Now all of a sudden they're saying, yeah, we are. We are making you do it. We got to the stage of our young people, 15. You know, one's there saying they were allowed to say whether they want the vaccine or not. Now they're taking it down to 12 years old. Yeah, it's talking about, yeah, it might be mandatory. And they might just come to the school and just inject your child. And you don't even know. And then they're going to sit there and say, obviously, because we've done our research and all the rest of it, there's a high chance that your child still might get the Delta variant now. Because they've had the double jab, because they have all of this now, they're now saying that they're actually spreading their virus because there's a new virus now that can take the actual vaccine, that they can take this jab that they're giving out everybody. Help me make it make sense. Help me make it make sense. Guys, please, it's going to be a long video. Listen to this mad thing.
Marching on against all recommendations of science and deciding that it makes sense to impose mandatory vaccination for all NHS staff. Now, if you think about this, it makes absolutely no scientific, logical sense. It is discriminatory and there is no logic to it. Why do I say that? And I plead with you to listen carefully to what I say and not react emotionally thinking I'm an anti-vaxxer. What I'm trying to do is explain what the latest evidence indicates about the vaccines and their efficacy, both in terms of infection and transmission terms, and then relate it to mandatory vaccine passports, vaccine mandates. What I'm not talking about is choose not to get jabbed or choose to get jabbed. I have always maintained my belief in the principle that choosing to vaccinate is a decision based upon informed consent that only the individual can make. I am double jabbed. And scientifically speaking, being double jabbed, it still remains the case that you are likely to be affected by reduced symptoms if you were to contract COVID. Having said that, and that's scientifically speaking, so let's continue in the scientific vein. Scientifically speaking, though the vaccinated are less severely infected by COVID, the latest data, both the Oxford study, which is an incredibly extensive study, and real-world data from Israel, indicate the following. This is, the sentence I'm about to utter, is genuinely the latest state of play, according to the research, on waning vaccine efficacy against the Delta variant, both in infection and transmission terms. This is currently where the science stands. As reported by Reuters, and as reported by multiple Bloomberg, multiple media outlets, all of which, by the way, I regularly post on my social feeds so that everybody can see what I'm referencing. The latest status of waning vaccine efficacy against the Delta variant of COVID is as follows. The vaccinated, yes, are less severely infected. However, they are more likely to become infected in the first place. Once they are infected, which is more likely for the double jabbed when it comes to the Delta variant, once they are infected with a similar viral load to the unvaccinated and yet can transmit COVID more easily than those who have recovered from a natural infection. And natural recovery from an infection is more wide-ranging and lasts longer than vaccine-induced immunity. That, dear listeners, is the latest evidence and science on waning vaccine efficacy when it comes to transmission and infection for the Delta variant. I'm going to read that one more time for you. The vaccinated are less severely infected, but they are more likely to become infected in the first place, with a similar viral load to the unvaccinated, if they are infected, and they can transmit COVID more easily than those who recovered from infection naturally. And natural recovery is more wide-ranging and lasts longer than vaccine-induced immunity. And what I am referencing all of that on is the latest Oxford study, as reported by Reuters themselves, and real-world data coming from Israel, the most vaccinated country in the world. The article in Reuters reporting on the Oxford study, many of you would have heard of this Oxford study anyway, but still, from Thursday, August the 19th, 2021, published by Reuters, headlined, British study shows COVID-19 vaccine efficacy wanes under Delta. The real-world data coming from Israel indicating all of this as well is very well established and reported widely in multiple outlets. But of course, you could, if you wanted to, just refer to news articles in Bloomberg and other mainstream outlets. The point about the fact that the vaccinated are more likely to become infected with Delta in the first place, if you go to Professor of Harvard Medical School, Martin Kulldorff's Twitter feed, he's a professor in Harvard Medical School of Disease Surveillance Methods, Infectious Disease Outbreaks, Vaccine Safety. He's published a piece from Israel National News, and he's put in the tweet the following sentence: vaccinated people were 6.72 times more likely to get infected than those with natural immunity from prior COVID disease. It's difficult for me over radio to fully reference everything I'm saying to you, which is why I urge everybody to go to @MajidNawaz, and I regularly post all these articles on my feeds, on Twitter and on Facebook and on Instagram. The reason I'm being very careful with referencing everything I'm saying to you is because of what I just read to you. The latest state of play when it comes to vaccines is that though the vaccinated are less severely infected, suffer symptoms when they are infected, they are more likely to become infected in the first place with a similar viral load to those who are unvaccinated, yet the double jab can transmit COVID more easily than the unvaccinated, and natural recovery is more wide-ranging and lasts longer than vaccine-induced immunity. That is the latest science. Now, when you hear that, mandated domestic vaccine passports make absolutely no scientific nor logical sense. And then add to that, they are discriminatory, in particular because of the Article 6 of the Universal Declaration on Bioethics and Human Rights, which makes it absolutely clear that consent to any medical treatment can be withdrawn at any time with no negative repercussions whatsoever. That is the state of the science as we now know it. It is unlikely to change. In fact, it's only going to get worse, probably, for the double jabbed when it comes to the ability to transmit Delta. Why? Because as many of us have suspected for a long time, rolling out mass vaccination during a pandemic could likely increase the chances of a vaccine-resistant strain of COVID, which is now known as the Delta variant. So when you hear all of this and you understand that to say that I want to impose vaccine passports on cinemas, nightclubs, theatres, NHS staff everywhere, and care homes to stop transmission, when the science indicates that it not only does not stop transmission, but the double jabbed are more likely to transmit it and more likely to become infected in the first place, then you realise it's no longer about the science. It is no longer about the science. That evidence is from Oxford. Oxford, last I checked, is in this country. We don't even need to go to Israel. We can go to that Oxford study. This is all demonstrated here. And so, what's going on? Why are ministers pushing ahead with a mandated domestic vaccine passport using stopping transmission as the excuse when the science indicates that not only does it not stop transmission, but the vaccinated are more likely to transmit it. Do you think they don't know the science? Do you think that they haven't read these things? Absolutely not. I can guarantee you they're aware of everything I've just said. This is a government we're talking about. Now that leaves me with only one realistic conclusion, and I use the word realistic here deliberately because I don't want to veer off into unfounded territory. The realistic conclusion that I can come to is that this is no longer about health and science, it's about money. It's about conflicts of interest. It's about people that have a vested interest in making sure that all of the big business that is involved in rolling out mandated domestic vaccine passports, from the big tech companies to the big health companies to the big pharmaceutical companies and the revolving door in Westminster, can all continue to be paid at your expense and at the expense of your civil liberties. And the fact is, when I say to you that's the only realistic conclusion, don't take it from me, because think about it. They already knew that this was discriminatory. Do I need to remind you? Just have a listen to Vaccines Minister Nadhim Zahawi prior to this decision being announced in Parliament.
No, we're not. And there are several reasons why we're not doing that. One, vaccines are not mandated in this country. As Boris Johnson's quite rightly reminded Parliament, that's not how we do things in the UK. We do them by consent. We yet don't know what the impact of vaccines on transmission is, and it would be discriminatory. Of course, you have the evidence that you've been vaccinated held by your GP, and if other countries require you to show proof of that evidence, then that is obviously up to those countries. But we've vaccinated, or we've given the first dose to 11.5 million people, and we have no plan of introducing a vaccine passport.
He used the word discriminatory. That's his own words. They understand fully what they are doing because they themselves told us that that would be discriminatory. And yet here we are today with Nadhim Zahawi saying that potentially they will go ahead and vaccinate 12-year-olds, perhaps without your consent, parents. That's what's being said, as is being reported in the press today. Politics for All reports. I'll just read it for you. 12 to 15-year-olds will be able to override their parents' views on whether to have the COVID jab if they are deemed competent to do so, Nadhim Zahawi has said via Times Radio. So not only did you hear him there admit the vaccine passports being mandated would be discriminatory, now he's saying that he wants to roll them out. He's also saying that they will extend this to all NHS care staff, and that they may not need your parental consent to jab your 12-year-olds. It started with just 2 weeks to stop the spread. Look where we have ended up. And imagine how long I've been saying to you, where is your red line? When will this stop? Absolute power. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And people thought I'd gone crazy when I used to say to you, I know what tyranny feels like. Please understand, I'm trying to defend you. And here we are. Now, do you think he's going to stop with all NHS staff? Then it will be all the catering companies and all the cleaners that provide the hospitals will have to be jabbed, which will mean the catering industry, hospitality and cleaning services will then start instituting mandatory jab policies for their staff because they can't afford to lose the government contracts. Then it will be all government offices, and then all contracts. Private companies that contract to any government office will not be able to afford to lose those government contracts, will mandate them for all their staff. And before we know it, you have a situation in this country where you're in a papers, please society. Is that the kind of country you want to live in? And it's why I keep saying resist. You're listening to Majid Nawaz here on LBC for the regular weekend show, and the time is 1:19.
Yeah, don't worry, I'll wait. Don't worry, I'm waiting. I'll wait for answers, I'll wait for solutions, I'll wait for you to even sit there and say, no, it's not true, it's not about the vaccine no more, it's not about if you had it, if you haven't had it, it's about freedom, it's about rights, it's about making sure that you guys have the choice to be able to make them decisions, not the government making the decisions, and then making decisions on haste, making these decisions in the sense of, oh, we've made the decision, now we're going to retract and take it back, now we're going to make the decision, now we're going to retract and take it back. We were thinking that we was happy getting rid of Matt. Seems like Jarvis or whatever his flipping name, he's just as bad, bruv. He doesn't know what he's talking about. What's you guys' thoughts, man? Comment below.